Next up, we have another very special speaker who I'm sure some of you are very eager to hear from, Skills Consulting Group's very own Ezekiel Raui. You may have read an article about him recently on the Stuff website about his incredible achievements as a young leader. He's certainly been identified as one to watch. From attending the White House Tribal Leaders Gathering with Michelle Obama to receiving a medal from the Queen and being named on Forbes 30 Under 30 Social Entrepreneurs in the Asia Pacific region, at just 23 years of age, Ezekiel Raui has been making his mark as a young leader for some time now. Having worked across youth-focused advisory and decision-making, mental health advocacy, youth leadership, development and education, Ezekiel will be sharing with us how to navigate the road to leadership and build support systems within the very ecosystem of your organisation. I'm sure Ezekiel will explain all these amazing experiences in better detail. I know I want to hear more. And don't forget, everyone, at the bottom of your Zoom screen is a Q&A button. So just place any questions you have for Ezekiel in that Q&A box, and we'll have a terrific, I'm sure, 10-minute Q&A session at the end with him. So I'll hand over to him now. Welcome, Ezekiel.
Ka pai wo tēnā koutou katoa e aku ti, e aku tā, e aku rangatira I tika kamihi kauake ki a tātou ko whakarau ka nei raro I te maru o tēnei o tātou nei whare. For those not too fluent in the language of love, it is truly my privilege, pleasure and honor to be here, to join the wealth of discussion that has kept me really excited as we progress through the summit this year. And a massive shout out to the IMNZ team for hosting this virtually, for allowing as many people as possible to sign up to join and to be a part of this type of discussion. Because I think similar to, I was watching, I'm an avid fan of TED Talks, of podcasts, of just different types of knowledge, everything from Simon Sinek to Jordan Peterson, quite well-respected, controversial figures and everything they get up to. And I often find that things like TED Talk and like a summit like this are restricted and only attended by those who already know their stuff. You know, we're almost preaching to the converted. So massive shout out to the team for opening up the doors and just encouraging everyone to join us. Tēnā koutou katoa, my name is Ezekiel Raui, and I'm really looking forward to having this conversation. I have to be honest, and I know the team are kind of freaking out because I was in a suit about 10 minutes ago. I was suited up, I had my tie on, I was ready to go. I was actually sitting down in quite a formal setting, and I thought, you know what? After the wealth of knowledge that's been shared from our speakers yesterday and from Carmen this morning and the speakers that you'll see later on in the day, I thought, how can I be as constructively divisive as possible? How can I contribute to the conversation in a way that isn't echoing what's been said? Because again, similar to that TED Talk experience, a lot of us share ideologies or mindsets that we already have. What can I bring to the table that can be just maybe that little bit different to contribute to growing this idea of how to lead or manage at times, or how to build teams? And so I decided about 10 minutes ago to get out of the suit, to change up. I chucked on a Jurassic Park t-shirt. I scrubbed the presentation, and I thought, as opposed to walking you through a stock standard, this is how we do this, ladies and gentlemen, according to the market data, we are 25% in the wrong direction, that I would change things up a little and share it from my perspective, my story, and make that as authentic and as engaging as possible. So I listened to our speakers yesterday, this morning, and I'm looking forward to the speakers after myself. I thought about the style of presentation. How can we do this? And hopefully in the background, my team's breathing a sigh of relief. Don't worry, I got you guys. I'm not going, I know some of the team is thinking 5 minutes. We let him out of our sight for 5 minutes and he's gone completely the other direction. For me, I thought it'd be best to share it from a personal experience, because the other speakers, unlike me, I get to play the new kid on the block. So get to be a little cheeky here and there and maybe not get in as much trouble as if I was a senior exec. And I'm going to take that opportunity to change some of our thinking, or to challenge some of our thinking around what it means to be in a team. And I'm not going to talk about this as an individual who's worked with building teams. I'm not going to talk about it from the perspective of being a leader within a team. I thought I'd share the experience of just being a member. I know a lot of you will hold leadership positions in your organization. You're familiar with this. You know this stuff inside and out. It's your bread and butter. So I thought I'd give you the perspective of someone who has, who, like a lot of people like myself, will be following and listening to you as leaders within your organization, and to let you know how we feel. And I thought the best way to do that would be to tell you my story or bits and pieces of it, and leave a decent amount of time at the end for us to have that conversation. So I start my journey as a year 7, as a year 8 student. I was about 11, 12, 13 at the time, and I had some pretty humble beginnings. I wouldn't say my whānau were financially stable, but for about 2 to 3 years, we were homeless. I've lived everywhere from the streets of Auckland, where I'm currently based, to being crammed up in a small room, and to living in what we considered, my siblings and I considered, our fanciest house, which was an old broken down bus that Dad converted into a place for us to stay, and we lived there for a little bit. So we had quite a humble beginning, and for me, that's what's made me who I am today. It's allowed me to see the world through different eyes, through this not so much a reliance on financial stability, which has meant that often I sit outside of common perspective. And so I thought I'd bring that to the table as a part of contributing to this discussion. And so as a year 7, as a year 8 student, while I didn't have too much, I remember and have always been fostered with the idea that anything is possible as long as I believe in it and strive for it. And I remember getting off the school bus one day. I walked into class and I remember seeing 2 students who were always late, who I now consider my brothers. 2 students who were always late to class, and one day I decided to stop them, and I decided to ask them why. And their answer essentially set in motion all of the events that led to where I am today, and is the reason why I am who I am. And that is, I asked them, why are you always late to form time? You know, we're meant to be here, so the teachers know we're here, we're safe, blah, 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 blah. They turned around me and without hesitation and looking dead into my eyes said, it's the easiest time to move stuff in school. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? And they turned around and said, it's the easiest time to sell drugs at school. Now, we were only young. And as much as I didn't have much, I knew that was wrong, or I was brought up to be told that was wrong. So I remember asking them why, and their answer changed my life. They said, well, because that's what it means to be Māori. And it changed how I thought, because I'd never heard that before. It conflicted with every inch of my being. I'd never thought like that before. And I asked them to explain, and they said, well, bro, we used to have a running joke in school that the only time we would see a Māori on television would be on Police 10-7. And we used to laugh at that and think, hey, is that your uncle? Hey, I saw your uncle on TV, famous guy, and everything like that. Unbeknownst to us, that perception then became the reality that we thought we could live within, or that for my mates thought they was their entire life. And so that conflicted with me. I talked to my best mate and I said, I've got a plan. Let's do this. Let's bring the boys together and see what we can do. And so we're sitting down, we had talked to a teacher and asked her to shout lunch, because in all honesty, none of us would have shown up if there wasn't free food. So we asked our teacher to shout lunch. We got the boys together and I said to the boys, hey, I've got an idea. I know how we are going to be famous. And they're like, cool, we're going to go join the rugby team. Let's go do rugby. And I was like, well, I'm not the fittest kid on the block. I don't know if I'm not very good at rugby. That may not work. Another bro was like, cool, we're going to go get ourselves a beautiful missus, a beautiful girlfriend. And I was like, well, we're all a little ugly. So that may not work. And I said, no, boys, I got it. I know what we're going to do. We're going to teach ourselves how to play chess. And one of them leaned over, he put his arm around me and he said, bro, are you okay? Is everything all right? We've got a counselor here. If you need someone to talk to, we're here for you, bro. And I was like, no, we got this. We're going to teach ourselves how to play chess. And that, unbeknownst to us at the time, and only upon reflection, realizing this, that became, I guess, the formation stage of our team. Now, for me, I love knowledge. I love gathering knowledge. We talked briefly a little bit, some of our speakers, about this idea of forming, storming, norming, these models of leadership, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, everything like that. Often those dictate the conversation we have when we're in our team deciding on how teams should be built. We knew none of that. we got together, and upon reflection and based on a study, I didn't realize until I was reading a study that Google had done, they had injected millions of dollars into discovering what made amazing teams. We were about to experience at that moment. And that was, as we were practicing, and we practiced for about 1 to 2 months. So we taught ourselves how to play chess. That was, we were able to bring our whole selves to the team. We came from 4 very different viewpoints of the world, 4 completely different perspectives, backgrounds, different standards, expectations, different realities. But that didn't matter because we were able, in our group, in the innocence of being, and this is, in all honesty, what I love working with young people, is sometimes that innocence, almost ignorance is bliss stuff, that we were able to bring ourselves, and we weren't judging each other for it. We just understood that that was the reality that our mates grow up in. And when I look at that in terms of an organizational context, often that's not the case. When we look at culture, when we look at fundamental values of an organization, often organizations that I've worked with in New Zealand and around the world ask unconsciously their employees to leave themselves at the door, which is why I decided, you know what, in our organization, and not to not to go for those brownie points, but I'll take them if they come, that I'm comfortable within our group, within our company, within my team, that I can bring my whole self to a team and I feel a part of it as a result of that. So I started thinking about, why is that important? Why was that momentous in this particular part of our journey? You know, we had just gotten together, we were just teaching ourselves how to play chess, but it worked. We didn't argue, we didn't hate each other, there wasn't this massive conflict. And I realized it's because we were unconditioned to what it should look like, how you should dress when you attend a conference, how you should be dressed when you keynote. I was about a second away from wearing a hoodie, but I know the team were breathing a sigh of relief knowing I didn't wear a hoodie to this, because I wanted to challenge our traditional thinking about what you should and shouldn't be. And that type of conditioning that we consciously or unconsciously realize guides what we say, what we do, how we think, and what we think a team should be. Often that's mistaken for making sure you have the highest performers, and all highest performers work well together. Now, if you know high performers, you know that's not necessarily the case. But anyway, continuing with that story, we found ourselves bonding really well without even doing anything. And that was pretty cool. So we taught ourselves how to play chess. Our teacher sat us down and said, all right, boys, you're going to have to fundraise because I've signed you up to a chess tournament in Whangarei. Now, we lived about 2 hours from Whangarei, and it's roughly 200 kilometers south of where we grew up. And for 2 of the 4 of us, it was the first time they had been outside of our community. It was the first time they were making their way down to Whangarei. Their world was revolved around growing up in the area that we did. And so we fundraised, we sold seafood chowder and fried bread as you do in the far north. I'm pretty sure we ate more of it than we sold. And we had to ask Nan and Papa for money anyway, but we found ourselves in a van on the way down to Whangarei for the chess tournament. Now, I'd like to add that we left in school uniform, but the moment we got around the first corner, we had chucked on our socks and jandals, our shorts and our hoodies, and we were comfy and on our way down. And I can only tell this part of the story because I have the privilege of working with and talking to a lot of young people in high schools. But I have to leave this particular bit out because they don't quite get it. I think you'll get it. On the way down, my mate had this massive boom box. That's not the revelation that freaks young people out. I think a young person told me once in high school that they had seen a boombox in the museum. But my mate had a boombox, and that boombox was battery powered. But the real thing that gets young people is that it ran on tapes. That tapes produce music, and that at the end of the tape, you had to rewind it to get back. So that's a nice little story there. My mate had a boombox. We found ourselves listening to Bob Marley as we did. We loved our Uncle Bob. We walked through the front door of this building. The doors opened on their own, and we were like, wow, this is insane. It's completely different to where we grew up. But before I could do anything, my mate had put down his boombox, rolled up his sleeves, and he was getting ready to have a fight. And that I was like, whoa, what's happening? And he's like, bro, they're staring at me. And I was like, well, I mean, we did just walk through the front door. And he's like, no, I think they want to steal my stuff. And I was like, bro, we're wearing socks and jandals. I don't know what they're going to steal. And it was like, so I asked him why he thought that, and he said, because that's just how it is up home. You know how it is. That if anyone looks at you for that long, they probably want to take some of your stuff. And so those types of realities were the ones we were growing up in. But we found ourselves at the chess tournament. We had to play separately. So 4 members to a team and 4 different divisions. You didn't see your team members other than for lunch if you were us, because we were sharing our lunch. And to make it to the finals, 2 of the 4 of your team members had to win their division. And something crazy happened. I found myself on the finals table. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool, because it means someone else in my team has made it to the finals. And then, without even being able to think about it anymore, the announcer raised the curtain in front of me, and sitting opposite me was my best mate. Then he raised the curtain next to us, and sitting next to us were our other 2 team members, were the bros. And that was a pretty exciting moment in our lives, because for the first time we had challenged what people thought about us. We made it to the finals, but as a team, it worked. That we found this great sense of pride in being able to support each other in the different learnings that we had to undertake to get to that point. And as you can imagine, that was the most intense game of chess that we have ever played. And if you ever meet any of these people, and you may, moving in these types of circles, if you ever meet any of my mates, I won that tournament. If they tell you any different, that doesn't matter, because I told the story first. I won, and they're lying. And then something crazy happened. We found ourselves on a stage after winning that, after I won that tournament. And the announcer was presenting us with our awards. And as you can imagine, we were going crazy. This was changing our mind about how we view life. And he announced, he's like, all right, boys, you're going to have to fundraise again, because you're representing Northland at the national chess tournament in Christchurch in the South Island. Immediately, my mate started nudging me. He was like, bro, I've got a serious question. I was like, bro, you can't spoil this for us. Like, we never make it on stage. Please just take it in. And he's like, no, bro, I've got a serious question for you. And I was like, okay, what is it? And without a word of lie, he turned to me and he said, bro, does New Zealand have a South Island? And in our youth, we burst into laughter. But upon reflection, that actually signified something really important for us. And I guess other than the importance of being able to bring your whole self into a team, a really important milestone or pillar of team relationships is the ability for each and every single team member to be able to speak confidently without fear of any type of negative feedback, any type of retaliation or anything like that. The ability to create an environment upon which every single member of that team feels valued. And while we laughed at that, we saw that as the bro's confidence to be open and honest with us. Because in all honesty, he wouldn't have asked anyone else. He wouldn't have asked the teacher that. He doesn't ask questions in class. And so for us, it was an indication that the environment we had created really worked, that it was working well for us as a team. So we made our way down to Christchurch. We played in the chess tournaments. We played a total of 16 games each, 32 between a pair, 64 in total. I was really nervous about calculating that for a little moment there, just to make sure I could math. And we lost every single game. We thought we were really good. In fact, it was kind of a good grounding moment for us, because we lost every single game, and all of a sudden, that's when we started to think about giving up. It's like, well, no, we're not any good at this. Let's just go. This is dumb. No one plays chess anyway. It's not for us. And then our teacher sat us down and talked to us about the third and final, but not least important piece of building a team. And that is to be rooted and grounded in your why. Because for us, and upon reflection, for us, the why wasn't to win a chess tournament. The why for us was in changing or being able to challenge the stereotypes that surrounded us, was to be able to say, no, actually, that's not who we are. Our why was rooted in doing our best for our family. It was this idea that we were going to change intergenerationally our mindsets to achieve something greater. So when I think about that story and I look at being in a team, and I think I'm quite lucky, and this is not, if my boss is watching, she's probably just nodding and cracking up and will tell me off later. But in all honesty, I think I've had the pleasure of now being in a really constructive team that values those 3 points. Funnily enough, the 3 points, bringing yourself, your whole self to work and into your team and being able to do that, being confident to speak, open-mindedly share your opinions and not be negatively put down for that. Instead, being incorporated and included into the conversation, regardless if that conversation is out of your depth. I mean, for me, it'd be no good sitting down with me talking about finances, because I just go, well, that number's like good. And then they explain to me that it's debt. And I'm like, well, now it's totally not good. You know, those types of things are outside of my depth, but to be included and to be able to feel confident enough to share is another important role of the team. And last but not least, and actually probably the core of it, is being rooted in your why as a team. It's that purpose-driven achievement. I think Gilbert summed it up really nicely yesterday. It's simple. We, as big machines, as individuals who have been conditioned to think a certain way in big machines, we overcomplicate things. We add model upon framework to the point where no one understands what we're saying, but everyone just nods like it's amazing. And we use all of this amazing terminology that some people just do not get. If you root yourself in your why, your team is inclusive and encourages people to bring their whole selves to work, and that you are building an environment where everyone feels confident to speak, you will find that you've got a team that works regardless of their opinions, perspectives, beliefs, or anything like that. So I thought I'd rather, just as opposed to carrying on, we'll just get into the conversation. If there are any questions, more than happy to answer them, and I'll throw it to you, Suze.
Yes, certainly are, Isaac. And lots of comments on what an incredible bit of energy you have, as well as all your vast experience and analogies. Most enjoyable. So, as always. So one of the questions here is, so you've talked about your ethos and you've talked about your style, but how do you actually bring that in and influence the company culture or your team culture to start with?
I think that is actually a really good question, and I'll start that with the team. For me, I've had the privilege of working under a manager who shares a similar ethos, this idea that everyone contributes, so that kind of conversation isn't hard. But the first thing that we need to recognize, or that a conversation needs to be had, is around whether or not, often, and this is not targeted at anything in particular, but I look at policies. And often people say policies are to keep people safe. If we look at it from an HR perspective, HR has our, restorative practices. I'm just thinking within the school context, restorative justice practices, et cetera, and all of those are people-centric. That's often what I hear when I'm talking to people about, what's your organization? And it's become quite a trend for people to say, no, we are people-focused, we are people-centric. And often I ask them about their policies and they say, oh no, this is about people. But if you dig deep enough, you'll find that policies have one core purpose, and that is to protect the organization and the machine. In order to bring it in to the team, that's a discussion that needs to be had amongst teams individually of the organization. As a team, what do we value? How do we encourage people to bring themselves into the space? And for me, it was the whole reason of being comfortable in a Jurassic Park shirt as opposed to a suit. It was the fact that even our CEO yesterday was engaging in GIFs and memes around Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and Star Trek, and blending those universes together. It's not so much, the challenge I think people have is we're looking for this tangible. We're looking for this model, this measurable. If anything, change that mindset. And I'll challenge you, as opposed to always looking for something from a quantitative measure, look at it, if it makes things simpler, from a qualitative one. How does this make me feel? How does my mate sitting next to me feel? How does the other side of me feel? And often there was this conversation around what makes a good leader. And Simon Sinek does this well, where the only thing that makes a leader is followers. What makes a good leader, and often can be defined within a military point of view, is someone who puts those he's responsible for, not in charge of, but charged with protecting before the needs of himself. And so it's this whole idea of talking. Often what's confused is the warm and fuzzies. People, that doesn't work, doesn't tangibly work, but it works when you're feeling like, actually, I can be myself. I'm going to talk about something that I love and not be shot down about it because it's outside of, I guess, your typical work perspective.
Well, and different people respond to different types of leadership too, don't they? Not all cookie cutter, I suppose, just to lead on from what you were just saying. One thing you've said previously, Zeke, is that you've learned more or maybe just as much from leaders that you didn't necessarily think were such great leaders about what sort of leader you wanted to be. That's something you've talked about a bit before?
Yes, and I think we went into a little bit about that in the article, which hopefully didn't set me up too much, the pressure to do a good presentation, and it's just gone down. But the idea that you can gain learnings from everyone and every particular event and circumstance you come into play with. It's about whether or not you're open to those learnings. And for me, some of my greatest learnings about how to engage with people, how to be truly and authentically people-centric is when I've had the opportunity to work under someone who I've realized that's not how I want to be. And yes, there has been times where we've disagreed, and that can become a melting pot of emotions, and all of a sudden no one wants to talk. But if you take a step back and you realize there's some learnings in this, how did I contribute to this negatively? What can I learn from this? And what can you take away even from the people that you disagree with? Because I think everyone brings something to the plate, and you're only being closed-minded to think that, they're a few tiers below me and maybe I'm not going to learn anything from them. I've had some of my greatest lessons from the people on the ground floor, from those who just work constantly with our clients, with our customers, whoever that is, as much as I have had from those on the CEO or the senior leadership team level.
Oh, interesting. I've got another question here too about, can you give any advice on how we can, as leaders, challenge our managers or businesses to think a bit more out of the box, to be open to us challenging those norms that you talked about, and diversity and different ways of approaching projects?
Yes, I've grown up with the saying, and I've gotten in trouble for it a couple of times, the saying, or the idea that it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And the best tool for me in terms of being able to talk to people is the style and the communication style that you choose to use. Sometimes for example, if I'm talking to someone who's really good with numbers, it's probably not a good idea to talk to them in a way that maybe our IT team would talk. If I'm talking about the technicalities of IT to a finance team about how best to do finance, that may not work. It's about finding the mode of communication, and sometimes that mode of communication is outside of work. Not to say, catch up for a couple of beers and we'll go something like that. But you don't necessarily, for me, building strong relationships don't come from talking about business. They come from talking about the individual. And if it means working with your managers and your senior leaders and the CEOs, it's about communicating in a way that works for them and being able to show that it works as well. I talked about it not being intangible, and there are a lot of amazing speakers who do a lot better than I at articulating the importance of the 3 points that I talked about. If you want statistics and facts, for example, go to the Google study. Google showed, and those were the 3 outcomes that they came up with after pumping millions of dollars into it, that is what makes amazing teams. And so the way in which you choose to communicate, I think, will have a massive role to play in whether or not that conversation goes any further than, okay, I'll get back to you.
Absolutely. Look, we haven't got much time, so I'll have to end it there shortly, but I do just want to know, I'm sure everyone would like to know, What was more exciting, meeting Michelle Obama or the Queen?
I think both of them in their own right have a really strong integrity or mana in their own space. For me, you know, Michelle was the backbone to the conference. She was this really strong person. Based on meeting her, it's true to say that behind every great man is a greater woman, is the backbone in that. And Her Majesty stands testament to obviously having lost her partner recently, that she is as strong, and to challenge this, I guess, the idea of women in leadership, and both of them do a really amazing job at that.
Yep, nicely put. And on that note, we have to end it there, I'm afraid. I know we've got lots of questions that have come in for you and lots of really impressed people. Thank you, Ezekiel. And I believe that you'll be available for people to chat with you in the virtual environment. So if you'd like to do that, you just go to the Now Attending button and you can have a chat to Zeke. I'm sure he's got plenty more to say.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.